of this opportunity to talk to all of you. And if you watched, we hope you did watch the videos previous to this, so you do understand already how important it is for you to have this Advance Healthcare Directive and have these documents available for people when they need it in a time when you're not able to express your wishes to them. And then we are gonna share a couple of stories with you, personal stories about why it's so important. I mean, why we do this for the community, because we're volunteers here just trying to help other people to get these things together for themselves and their families. We call the presentation Giving the Gift of Having the Conversation, because really it's a gift that you're giving your family in a time that's so stressful. He'll pop in a second. And what this does is it allows them to follow your wishes instead of having to decide for you in a time when they're already under so much pressure. So I want to make sure we're okay on the PowerPoint. All right, give us 1 second. Yeah, we're good. Perfect. So Community First Hawaii is a 501c3 nonprofit, started by Barry Taniguchi in 2014 to help community members address our healthcare issues as a community. It helps us convene stakeholders and community members to be able to make changes. The vision is a Hawaii island where we embrace our kuleana for our own health and the well-being of others. And that's because we're based here, but ideally initiatives like this are helping people statewide. And this is exciting that we're here doing this. The mission is convening stakeholders, providers, and policymakers to drive initiatives to improve the health of our community. And this is just one of many initiatives Community First has worked on towards that end. This is an abbreviated version of what we normally do, but there's still 3 parts to the conversation. Part 1, you've already done some of the work, and we are asking you to start this conversation around end-of-life care with your family. And by watching those videos and hearing the stories, you're gonna understand why that's so important, and we want you to agree with us, so we want you to try and get that done as soon as possible, today even. In part 2, we're gonna show you how to complete an Advance Healthcare Directive, or if you already have one, we encourage you to review and revise it. We're gonna give you ideas about how to do that. And in part 3, there's some final important steps that you need to take care of. You can get your Advance Healthcare Directive, say even today, but there's a few other things you need to make sure you do so that these documents and your wishes are available to the people who need it when you're not able to speak to them. So in those videos that you watched, and keep it in mind when you're hearing the stories, right? There's these 4 things that kind of come up, and having this Advanced Healthcare Directive in place helps with these. The confusion that happens in a family when you're not aware of what the person's wishes are. Again, if you watch the videos, there's a point where they ask the daughter, what kind of care would your father want? Over and over again, right? I don't know. We're just waiting. But they can't wait. They need to make that decision for him, and they're having such a hard time because they don't know what he wanted. These feelings of guilt, anyone who's been in a similar situation understands exactly that. It's so hard, even if academically, right? You understand you're making the best decision you can with the best information you have, with the most love and respect. You can't get away from these guilty feelings, right? And what happens is if you're able to follow someone's wishes, if you've had a discussion beforehand and understand the care someone wants, it alleviates a lot of that. There can be conflict in the family, and this conflict can be anywhere from small disagreements about what kind of care or when to give or when to remove certain types of care, all the way up until physical conflict where police need to be involved. So again, having these open conversations with your family about the kind of care you want alleviates a lot of those problems. Then there's these feelings of sadness in the family, which you can't do anything about at the time. But what you are doing is allowing your family more peace after this tumultuous period. What happens is all of these other factors, the confusion, the guilt, the conflict, there's less of that during that time. It allows the family to recover more quickly. In those videos that you watch, if you can just think back, right, what it is that they're doing is they're guessing, right, what their loved one would want. Versus if you watch the second video, the ABC News clip, where they've had that open conversation, and now there shouldn't be any confusion about what kind of care the grandfather wants. They understand his feelings about end of life care and what he wants for himself. These feelings of guilt, feeling like they're making the wrong decision. In the first video, they said that exactly, right? And it's kind of heavy, but they said, we have the feeling like we might be killing him. I mean, think about that, right? We have the feeling they're not killing him, right? He's already on life support. They know this. The doctor is telling them that. But they feel like they're making that decision and taking away the technology that's keeping him alive versus following whatever wishes he wants, whether that is to continue that kind of care or whether that is to let him go peacefully, right? Versus having less guilt by following his wishes had they known what it was. The conflict in the family, obviously there was some disagreement over what kind of care and when to take off the life support in the first video. But there's going to be much less conflict, you imagine, in the second family, because they have that agreement about what kind of care the grandfather wants. And I mean, if you watch the video, the rest of the family all started talking about it, down to their grandson, which is important, and we're going to talk about that in a second. And then again, the sadness in the family. What it is you're not alleviating any of the sadness at the time, because when a family member is in this situation, that is what it is. But what happens is, again, giving this gift of peace to your family allows them to recover more quickly and be less traumatized by the things that have unfolded. So a lot of people already have a living will or some kind of durable power of attorney. These used to be separate documents, so some of you might have older separate documents. The Advance Healthcare Directive that we sent to you, that's been developed by the legislature and by University of Hawaii, actually combines the two. And what we do is if you don't have one, we'll get you set up. But if you do have one, we've got a lot of ideas about how you can review it, and you should be looking at it regularly. This is what I was talking about when I talked about the grandson in the second video. In Hawaii and probably a number of other states, but specifically for us here, right? Up to the age of 18, a parent or legal guardian does generally serve as the default healthcare agent for their child. That makes sense, right? But upon turning 18 and becoming a legal adult, parents are no longer automatically the healthcare agent for their child. And I don't know if any of you knew that out there, but this was news to us, and we've been doing this for 5 years, right? So this is kind of a big deal. Yes, at the hospital, logically, if the parents are there, you'd think the doctor's going to talk to them, but that's not a legal requirement. So this is why an Advanced Healthcare Directive and having these discussions with your family is so important for anyone 18 or over. This is not just for people who are mid-career or people who are retired. I mean, this is for anybody 18 or over. This is super important. And if outside of getting your own Advanced Healthcare Directive, if there's only one other thing you get out of this, this is it. We want you to share this with your family so that you know that even the younger people in your family need to have an Advanced Healthcare Directive. So I'm trying to see if our other speaker has popped in yet. Okay, so we're gonna have, well, do you want, 1 second, sorry. Did you want to make talk now?
Is he there?
Yeah, he's in.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so Nathan Gaddis was introduced earlier, right? But he's also a realtor, and he's got a pretty dramatic story, I feel like, and it's powerful to share with you why he feels like this is so important. So if we can let him share his screen, we'll let him talk for a few minutes about why he thinks this is so important. And Nate, thanks very much for being here.
Oh, my pleasure. Good morning. So yeah, I think, life can be unpredictable, as anybody over the age, any sentient human over the age of 12 could probably figure out by then. Anyway, for me, just a quick story. I was right in the middle of the worst of COVID. like around September of 2020 that I started to have like these little, I was, growing my business. I was a solo agent and doing frankly pretty well for myself. And, business was growing even through COVID, it was actually going surprisingly great. And then I started to actually have what I thought was like an earache. I started to have this kind of little bit of disequilibrium, like when you have to clear your ears, after changing major elevations, like landing in a plane or going up and down a mountain. And it just started to get worse and worse. And every doctor I saw and everybody I spoke to, even just medical like specialists, like surgeons and things, thought I had some sort of an ear infection. So I scheduled an appointment with ear, nose, throat doctor, on Oahu, which was scheduled out like a few weeks later. But I never actually made it that far. One morning, I was, and I had actually started to get headaches as well. And they thought, oh, it's just crystals in your ear or something like that. And one morning I was just, doing my normal morning routine, making coffee, and my left arm suddenly went numb and my vision started to blur. And I thought, well, that's not good. I had these patchy spots where I just couldn't see. Literally, it was like going blind. I had my dad drive me to the emergency room in Kamuela at Queens. And they checked me in and they said, well, we're going to do a CT scan of you, just to be sure of what's going on. And while I was waiting for the results, in the like patient waiting room, I was talking to another doctor and explaining the symptoms. And he said, oh, you definitely have ear crystals. Like, this is just classic case. There's a whole long therapy thing you're going to have to go through. I said, oh, okay, got it. And anyway, emergency room doctor walks in the door and shuts the door. And he says, are you ready to hear what's going on? I said, well, yeah. And I was actually feeling perfectly calm and optimistic at that point. And he said, I'm sorry to tell you, you actually have a very large brain tumor in the front left lobe of your brain. It was like apparently the size of a golf ball. And he said, we're actually going to have you, like, you need surgery right now, like as soon as possible, if we can pull it off within hours. And so what ended up happening was I was put on a little tiny prop plane out of Waimea Airport in the middle of the night. It was like being shot into outer space, basically, with these nurses. And again, this is the middle of COVID, so no one can come with you. My poor father, I had to waddle out into the parking lot, and explain to him what was happening and say, hey, drive safe going home. Sorry, I have a brain tumor. I need surgery. And so off into outer space, I was shot. And as soon as I landed in Honolulu, an ambulance picked me up from the prop plane. Took me to Queens Punch Bowl. And as soon as we drove in, I was wheeled literally straight into an MRI machine. It was crazy. And as soon as I came out, within less than an hour, and I'm lying in a waiting room, and this gentleman named Dr. Morita walks in and says, hey, hi, I'm Dr. Morita. I'm going to be your surgeon. Here's your brain tumor. Yes, it is a brain tumor. And yes, we need to operate right away. So please sign here. They give you this pack of forms, which basically, they warn you, all right, this is major brain surgery. You may wake up not able to speak. You may wake up with difficulty moving some of your limbs, vision problems, hearing problems. There's just all these risks that come with it. Please sign here, right? And so I signed on the dotted line. And I was in shock. I think it helped that everything happened so quickly. And within just a few hours, I was literally in surgery. But what was extremely helpful is I wasn't particularly panicked about the overall process. This thing they're talking about, Advance Healthcare Directive, I had one thing in my favor, which is I had actually nearly bit the dust about 10 years before that. I was in the restaurant industry and actually had a bakery I was running at that time in my life, late 20s. And I, was heating up all the commercial ovens for the day. And one morning, and I walked past them, and I was in seconds of being blown to smithereens. One of them went off like a truck bomb, destroyed the ovens next to it, threw me to the floor. And I just happened to get lucky, literally. I had, the old Apple earbuds in and things, and so that saved my hearing. But it was actually after that experience that I went and I got an advanced healthcare directive for myself, because it scared the living whatever out of me at that time. I also went on after that to get myself life insurance, to get a will and a trust and all the other, documentation things straight in the event that something ever happened to me, because it spooked the hell out of me. And sure enough, a little over 10 years later, here I am, lying on this operating table while they put me to sleep, and my last thoughts before I fell asleep or fell unconscious was just of my family, and just saying a prayer that my family be taken care of. But I wasn't panicked about anything regarding decision making, who's going to make a decision if I wake up with all kind of difficulties, or I don't make it through this and they pull the plug, who's going to handle anything financial. I had a financial power of attorney besides the Advance Healthcare Directive. I had the life insurance lined up. I had all these things lined up. So I was actually very at peace, going to sleep. And, luck got me through it. I happened to have the best brain surgeon in the state just happened to be on shift that night. When they took me in, this was in the middle of COVID, the ICU recovery. I mean, I'll share my screen and you can see, you got to enable the screen sharing on your guys' side. You have it disabled right now, by the way. But anyway, I was a complete mess, obviously, when I woke up from the surgery. And it was also the middle of COVID in the Queen's ICU where I was recovering. So people were dying all around me consistently. They were having code blues go off and people dying of COVID everywhere. I truly did not expect to make it out alive, or at least there was because I'm completely beat up by the surgery. There was a very significant chance I would not have made it out, or that I would have actually ended up with COVID in a very bad way. Amazingly, that did not happen. I did manage to make it home and live through it, and all I've got to kind of show for it now is a nice big, crack in my skull that you can still see. Amazingly, the guy was able to get the whole thing out from me, and I went on to have really intensive treatments that, thankfully should allow me to live for quite a long time. But yeah, I'll never forget going to sleep in that moment and not being panicked about what could be. And that could have been the absolute opposite case. But that made it a lot easier to live through it and to also live through that insane ICU recovery. The side note, they actually kicked me out earlier than you would typically kick a brain surgery patient out, because they were so terrified I'd get COVID. They sent me home on a commercial flight of all things after like 2 nights. My head looked like a basketball. It was just absolutely ridiculous. But yeah, it's definitely worth getting these things done. And the only reason I had that done was because I had the misfortune or good fortune of almost biting the dust in a very big way once before. So that had spooked me into taking action. But yeah, don't rely on getting spooked into action. Just take the action, and then don't sweat it later.
Okay.
I'll show you here, I got a screen share, yay. So just for effect, I'll show you kind of what post-surgery looks like for something like that. It's not fun, yeah. But again, because I had made those choices early on, that made that insane experience just that much more manageable for me. Anyway, hope that helps.
Yeah, okay, so like I said, when I introduced him, I said it was dramatic, right? That sounds like an insane story, right? I'm looking at you guys on the screen, right? Like it seems crazy, but that's why I asked Nate to be here, because this is somebody who, looking at him, is a picture of health, looks like he's doing well, right? Business is going good. We're blessed to have him still around. It came out of nowhere. Right? There was nothing, there was no precursor to let him know that this is the kind of healthcare emergency he was going to have. So we hope that shows you how this is so important, right? Even though you think you are, and we pray that you are as healthy as you think you are. You never know what can happen, right? That's why this is so important. That's why you need to get this done without waiting. Like, don't procrastinate on this stuff. You never know when you're gonna need it. Nate, thank you again so much for coming today.
My pleasure.
Thanks, Nate. This next section is going to be about completing your Advance Healthcare Directive, and Charlene is going to be doing that part for you.
Well, I hope I'm out there in Zoom. My name is Charlene Boshi. Amy and I, you'll meet Amy Hamani in a short while. We started this project to make sure that we can help our community. We're very lucky. Oh, sorry. Wrong direction. We're very lucky. We're always learning. So thank you for the invitation. We expected that this would be a younger crowd. So Nate's story is really appropriate because many people really say, oh, Bombay later on, I'll do it down the road. They really don't. So what we'd like you to do today is really make those steps to complete your document today, if you don't have one, or at least review what you have. Make sure that you can feel that you're ready and your life is tidied up. So first of all, we're going to talk about the form itself. You should have received the form in the either mailed to you or electronically provided. We have a little screen issue right here, but why don't you do this? You should have the form with you. So why complete the Advance Healthcare Directive? You've heard why from me, but think about it. Many of you are on the road every day driving with clients everywhere, or even looking at properties on this island, sometimes way in the bush. But why complete the Advanced Healthcare Directive? What if you are in a coma because of a car accident? Or you have a severe stroke and you are unable to speak? Think about Nate's situation. He thought he just had a headache and then he realized he had a brain tumor. It does happen to people of all ages. Decisions about your medical care will need to be made if you cannot speak for yourself. So really the question is, who would you want to speak for you? The person you choose to speak for you is called your healthcare agent or healthcare power of attorney. The Advanced Healthcare Directive, in shorthand we call it AHCD, allows you to select your agent ahead of time and to make end-of-life care decisions in advance before a crisis occurs. As Nate says, when he knew when he was off into that dreamy state before he was unconscious before surgery, he felt at peace because he knew that he had this part of his life taken care of. What if you don't have an Advanced Healthcare Directive and you're unable to make decisions? In Hawaii, as was stated earlier, there are no next of kin rules. Your spouse is not the automatic decision maker. Your parent is not the automatic decision maker. So this is how it works. The hospital will call together all interested persons that they can locate, that they know about. Then the group will select one person. The person's name is called a surrogate to be the decision maker. The person is called a non-patient designated surrogate. Having an Advanced Healthcare Directive and choosing an agent is very important, and you have the choice ahead of time. And as a realtor, I know that you like to think ahead of time. So this is why we're here. So part one of the form talks about the healthcare power of attorney, and it tells you this is what your healthcare agent can do. Your agent will be able to speak for you in all medical matters if you cannot speak for yourself because of an illness or accident. The person has the right to accept or refuse any kind of medical care and testing as you would be. The person can discharge or select your doctor and can see all your medical records unless you specify differently. Who should this person be? Your agent is someone you trust. Again, someone you trust to carry out your wishes. That person must be willing to fight for your wishes. The person should have decisions made based on your values and goals rather than those of the agent. This is important because that person will be selected because you know that person will be able to understand your values and goals. That person must be able to make difficult decisions such as when to start or stop medical care, such as CPR, ventilator treatment, dialysis, intravenous medications and feeding. Your agent does not have to live near you, but doctors need to be able to reach your agent easily by phone or email. And the agent does not have to be your spouse or relative. It could be a close friend. Many times your friend knows better than your spouse or your family members what your values are and what you really want. The second thing you will have to do is, if your primary agent is unavailable, you'll have to select an alternate agent. This person is just in case the primary agent is not willing, able, or reasonably available to carry out the important responsibilities of the agent. That the alternative agent should have the same qualities as your agent. Your agent is about if your agent is about your age. Many times, if you have a spouse or partner, you choose that person, you may want to select someone a generation younger as your alternate agent, especially for those of you who don't look at your documents frequently. This becomes important. When does your agent's authority become effective? Your agent's authority becomes effective when your primary care physician determines that you are unable to make your own decisions. So you have a choice. On the form, you'll see a section. If you mark this box, your agent can make healthcare decisions for you immediately. Remember that you always have the right to make your own decisions about your healthcare, and you can revoke the agent's authority as long as you are of sound mind and can speak. And why do you want this? Sometimes, especially if you're dealing with a person that doesn't want to repeat the whole story, and the agent and the person has a very close and secure relationship, you allow the agent to speak for you immediately. So especially for older people, you go in as a child with a parent to be able to explain to the doctor, and so it's easier for the parent. That's an example. So part 2 of the form that you'll see are individual instructions. In this section, you may modify or strike through anything with which you do not agree. But again, if you do those kinds of things in modifying a form, as you know, in a legal document, you should initially make any modifications. So you'll note that we're going to be talking about part 2 of the form, and again, you should have that in front of you, the end of life decisions. And these are examples when your Advance Healthcare Directive takes effect. If you have an incurable and irreversible condition that will result in your death within a relatively short period of time, such as end-stage heart disease, incurable terminal cancer. Another example, when your Advance Healthcare Directive takes effect, if you're unable to communicate your wishes, and it is unlikely that you will ever recover the ability to do so. For example, severe dementia. And unfortunately, we're facing this as a crisis in our community right now, as far as people with dementia. Or if you have a bad stroke and you cannot communicate. Or if you are in a long-term coma already and you cannot speak for yourself. Those are examples when you are unable to communicate. A third example of when your Advance Healthcare Directive takes effect is the likely risks and burdens of treatment would outweigh expected benefits. For example, continuing chemotherapy and radiation therapy with its side effects. And many of you have heard the stories about these side effects of pursuing some chemical chemotherapy or radiation. And when there really is no hope for cure, but you're doing it just because you think you can. So again, another situation is continuing dialysis in end-stage kidney disease, which may cause low blood pressure or fluid in your lungs. Another situation, you think about it, sometimes the treatment is worse than dying from the disease. And I'm sure many of you have experienced a friend or someone close to you who may have experienced this already. Doing CPR, putting a tube down the throat of a patient with severe dementia will not cure the underlying problem. So these are end-of-life decisions in this section that Amy will cover now. So again, Amy's gonna cover this section, and I'm gonna come back a little later. We'll talk more about the form and what to do with the form that you'll complete it today. So Amy, she'll be covering the next section of the form.
Thank you, Charlene. And thank you all for participating today. This next section is on end-of-life decisions. In this section, you will decide what kind of medical care you want or do not want. If you are near the end of life and your physician determines that you are unable to make your own decisions. In this document, whenever you check a box, be sure to initial next to the checkbox. We're now at your first important decision, and you're to check only one of the boxes. You may choose, I want to stop or withhold medical treatment that would prolong my life. Choosing this option allows a natural death, which simply means not interfering with the natural dying process. You would still be provided care to keep you as comfortable as possible. Or you may elect to choose, I want medical treatment that would prolong my life as long as possible within the limits of generally accepted healthcare standards. Choosing this option means do everything to keep me alive for as long as possible. If I stop breathing, put me on a breathing machine. If my kidneys fail, start dialysis. If my heart stops, do CPR, etc. The second important decision deals with artificial nutrition and hydration. The key word here is artificial. Artificial nutrition means giving liquid and nutrients through a tube inserted through the nose or directly into the stomach if you can no longer eat or drink by mouth. It also includes intravenous IV fluids. We're often asked, does withholding IV fluids cause pain or discomfort? No. Studies show that IV fluids at the end of life, in general, cause more symptoms, including increased swelling in the legs and arms or fluid in the lungs, which can cause breathlessness or coughing. Often, we might think we are starving the patient when we withhold food and fluids, but in reality, at a certain stage in the patient's illness, their bodies are no longer able to process food, and the artificial nutrition does not improve their quality of life. The document reads, artificial nutrition and hydration must be provided, withheld, or withdrawn in accordance with the choice I have made in the preceding paragraph A. So if you said to stop or withdraw any medical treatment that would prolong your life, you would not be given foods or fluids by artificial methods. For those who still have some swallowing ability, careful hand feeding may be tried. Also ice chips to alleviate a dry mouth and for comfort. If this is your choice, do not mark anything in this section. The document says, if I mark this box, artificial nutrition and hydration must be provided, under all circumstances, as long as it is within the limits of generally accepted healthcare standards. Again, if you want to stop treatment that would prolong your life, you should not mark this box. Keep in mind that these are end-of-life decisions. The third important decision that you need to make deals with relief from pain. If I mark this box, I choose to alleviate pain or discomfort, even if it might hasten my death. According to experts, the majority of people would rather be comfortable and without pain. If this is your wish, you should check this box. Pain medications provide pain relief and allow patients to be more relaxed and comfortable. Sometimes, but not always, they do pass sooner, but are more relaxed instead of stress and suffering. Many, many years ago, my dad was in the hospital. He had congestive heart failure. He was dying. And as I stood next to him in his bedside, I could tell that he was in pain. Just by the facial expressions, the tenseness of his body. And I had already asked the nurses to please give him something for pain, but they hadn't been able to do it yet. So I went out to the nurse's station, and by then I was crying, and I said, can you please give my dad something for pain? Even if a patient is unable to communicate to you, they can be suffering from pain. So they did come in and give him something for pain. And within 10 to 15 minutes, I could tell that the pain was subsiding. He was more relaxed and he wasn't stressed. And he did pass away in about an hour or two. Might he have lived another 5 hours, another day? I really don't know. But I felt so much better knowing that he was no longer in pain and he wasn't stressed and he wasn't suffering. So sometimes, but not always, they do pass sooner, but they are more relaxed instead of stressed and suffering. The proper dosing of medication is very critical. And palliative and hospice care providers are the experts in pain management and comfort care. We're really fortunate to have providers all throughout the state. And I encourage you to please ask for their help early on in a patient's journey, because they can provide so much in pain management and comfort care, not only for the patient, but they work with the family and provide excellent services. So please, remind folks to take advantage of these services early on. Now, Part 2D, other, deals with adding extra pages to your document. So if I mark this box, the additional instructions or information I have attached are to be incorporated into my care. So check this box only if you are adding extra pages. Now, Part 2E, what is important to me is optional. It allows you to say what you value and what makes life worth living to you. You can leave this section is optional. You can leave it blank, or you can personalize your wishes. It allows you also to say when you would not want your life prolonged by medical treatment. Now, here are some examples of what other participants have written into their document. Try to keep me alive until my daughter from California arrives. Do not allow my son Joey to impose his wishes over mine. I am an organ donor. I wish to have hospice care at home. One of the participants said, do a trial of life support treatments, but if the treatments do not work and there is little hope of getting better, stop these treatments. Another participant said, avoid all life support treatments and focus on my being comfortable. For more examples, we do have a handout called What is Important to Me? And we'd be happy to send it to you if that's of interest to you. Finally, what I would like to discuss is the difference between the POST and the Advance Healthcare Directive. POST stands for Providers' Orders for Life-Sustaining Treatment, and that's the bright green form on the left. And the Advance Healthcare Directive, the Hawaii's Advance Healthcare Directive, is the document on the right, which is what we're dealing with today. Now, this chart shows you the important difference between the POST and the Advance Healthcare Directive. There's been a lot of confusion about this, and so we want to be sure that you understand the difference. The Advance Directive is for everyone 18 and older. The POST, on the other hand, is for seriously ill or frail individuals of any age, including children. It's not for everybody. The Advance Directive provides general instructions for unforeseeable healthcare crises sometime in the future. The POST, on the other hand, contains specific medical orders for current treatment, and it must be signed by a doctor or nurse practitioner. You should not be given the POST to take home and complete on your own. You should ask to be able to sit with your doctor or nurse practitioner and go over the form to be sure that you understand it completely. The Advance Healthcare Directive does not guide EMS actions. However, the POST does, because it's medical orders. And the reason why it's on that bright green paper is we recommend that you post it on your refrigerator so that if EMS comes, they know where to look and it's readily available. And because of the bright color, they'll see it. Both the Advance Directive and the POST guide treatment decisions in the hospital. Now, if you have a POST, you should also have an Advance Healthcare Directive, because the POST does not list a healthcare power of attorney or agent. And be sure that your POST and Advance Healthcare Directive are in agreement. Thank you. And now I'm going to turn this over back to Charlene.
Thank you, Amy. What we're going to talk about is completing your document. So if you look at the form, you have two choices. One is to have it witnessed or have a notary public notarize it for you. Because you're all realtors, our recommendation is just to go to a notary because you have access to the notary. I'm not going to go through the restrictions on the witnesses, that would take us 10 minutes. So we're just going to say to you, please use your notary that you have available as a realtor. So the final important steps after you complete your Advance Healthcare Directive. First, keep it accessible. It's nice to have things in a safety deposit box, but it's not helpful to get to it if someone doesn't have a key. So we tell you keep it accessible. As far as the Advanced Healthcare Directive itself, Give copies to your physician. If you have a specialist, give that copy to the specialist as well. Give copies to your agents and family members so they know what you want. A copy has the same effect as the original, but you should still keep the original for yourself. If being hospitalized, take a copy with you. If traveling abroad or away, take a copy with you. When renewing your driver's license, you may designate Advance Directive on your driver's license or state identification card. And this is very important. Review your Advance Healthcare Directive annually. Pick a holiday or special occasion where you know your family will be there, and make changes if appropriate, and do a new Advance Healthcare Directive if some of the directives change or if your agent changes. If you complete a new Advance Healthcare Directive, distribute the new copies as done before, as you did before, and destroy the old Advance Healthcare Directive copies. And again, an attorney is not required. We're not giving you legal advice. We're just giving you information so you can make your own choices. So again, this is the gift of the conversation to avoid disagreements. Having a continuing conversation with your agents and other family members assure you that your wishes are followed. You cannot predict future health conditions and accidents, no matter how young you are, as in the case of Nate. And most of you are probably very young out there, so, but think about it. Unfortunately, health conditions can happen that are unpredictable. The Advanced Healthcare Directive and the conversation really provides your family and agent a roadmap to follow if something happens to you. And it tells them what is important to you for a peaceful end of life journey. And again, this lifts the burdens of uncertainty and guilt. And this is the gift you can give to your family. For additional information, we have some websites listed there. If you live in more than one state, there are forms available from the other states as well. And most of them are pretty much similar to Hawaii. If you want more information, you can go to Community First as well as to Kukoma. Luckily, we have aging and disability resource centers in every county for those of you in different counties. If a senior of 60 years of age or older needs assistance, including financial and caregiving needs, you can contact your local county aging and disability resource center, known as ADRC, and they can help you. If you need a financial power of attorney or a simple will, the Aging and Disability Resource Center can provide a referral to legal aid if you are 60 years or older, just by calling the Aging and Disability Resource Center. So again, thank you. We will answer your questions now, and I think we're just on time. These are our email addresses, so you can also ask questions later if you do have them. But we ask that you complete your document today if you haven't done it already or you don't have one, because at least you'll have the certainty who will speak for you. You can always change it tomorrow, and that's the wonderful value of having an Advanced Healthcare Directive. They're very easy to fill out, complete, discuss with your family, and change as your conditions change. Okay, so if there's any questions out in Zoom land, I can't tell you how many people are out there, but I'm sure Christina can pick up any questions so that we can answer them for you.
There are no questions in the chat, but I do have one question. Will the form still be, I guess, recognized if it was laminated?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, that's good. That means you're really taking care of it. That's very good. Any other questions? But we'll be available to you, even if you don't have any questions right now. But again, we're here really to help you and your family. And if you have others who want to hear our message, we have our presentation recorded now, so we can send it out to you, and as well as send you materials so they can complete the Advanced Healthcare Directive. So on behalf of Community First, we want to thank you. And again, you can give the gift of the conversation and the completion of your Advanced Healthcare Directive. So Thank you very much.
Thank you to Community First Hawaii, and thank you everyone for joining us today. Have a great day and take care.
Thank you.